I don't know if you know this dude, Jebus, but he built the Earth in 7 days. And since I hate myself, I have decided to take on the challenge of becoming better than Jeb. Not in coding, that would be too easy, too simple. People would think of that. Instead, I've decided to become better at Jeb by building. I'm going to build structures better than anything Jeb has ever seen. I will become the next Jebus. To do this, I will build the world. But in Minecraft. Wait, what do you mean that Jebus and Notch already built the entire world in Minecraft already? I can't do this again if they've already done it. Okay, so scratch that plan. We're not building the entire world. We're just gonna build a portion of it, but better. Better than the trained generation around me. That way, I can still be the best. I can still be as good as Jebus. But we can't build the Earth because multiple people have already done that, including Jebus himself. And I am not a copycat. I am unique and original, which is why we're going to be following a tutorial by... Never mind. That'd be cheating. I can't do that. What do I do? What do I do? I've got it. Completely unique idea. I am going to make a build, but I'm going to make a time-lapse of the build and explain how I made the build as I go along. It's genius. No one has ever thought of something like this before. I will go down in history as one of the best Minecraft builders ever. Step 1 is to figure out how to play Minecraft. Okay, to start out this massive project, we started by laying out the general shape, showing where all the platforms would go so we could figure out how big the builds were going to be. And then we also laid out the different outlines of everything so we get the height elevation and basically planned it out a lot better. We even built these big mountains to frame the entire build. There were 2 of them, so there's one on the left and one on the right. And then we laid out these wool outlines to show where the houses, platforms, and pathways would go as well. I do have to admit a mistake though. I did lose the first little bit of time-lapse footage for the first house, but we're jumping straight into the second one with detailing it. We've got a weird shape going with sort of a curved roof. The one that I missed the roof is super funky and weird, but looks super cool with this arched pattern. And then I'm laying out the foundation and the general shape for this next bigger build using a spruce wood trim with spruce planks for the interior and a mangrove middle, and building up the roof out of deep slate similar to all the other builds. And then we add some windows, and behind them we put a mixture of yellow stained glass and white stained glass with frog lights to make them pop and especially stand out at night. And then we add a bunch of detailing using fence gates. Then I texture the roof and add this platform up in the front, and then we move on to connecting everything with paths. I don't know if it's just me, but when building in a snowy area, one thing that I find just makes anything better is just spamming a ridiculous amount of snow layers everywhere. It just gives everything this little bit of texture and detail, and find it really useful in builds. Then I moved on to adding some more detail into this house up here and giving it some standing out bits. Then we move on to the smallest house that I'm going to build, this one on a little mountain here. I start out by laying out the frame and getting the general shape, and then we move on to adding some detail bits, using the same fence gates and window design. I even add this little balcony off to the side here, and add a quick chimney. Then we move over to the biggest house, which is going to be a tavern, on top of the mountain just below our big mountain, if that makes sense. I start by laying out the build, getting the general shape, then I move on to detailing that section, and then back to the general shape. My goal is to break up these big walls of spruce planks, because I know they're quite boring to look at, and so adding these spruce pillars in between them gives you your eye to focus on. Then I move on to adding the roof real quick, giving it some weird shape and texturing it. Then I went AFK for a while, multiple times. To give you a frame of reference, most of this was built at 1 a.m., so I fell asleep at my keyboard multiple times. Then we add some windows to break up the walls. You'll notice I'm building a little balcony over there, and down at the bottom of the screen, My friend came along to help me build up some more houses, so he's building up one down here real quick, which looks super cool and has a funky roof. And then we move on to adding a greenhouse, because if it's next to a tavern, they need a place for them to gather their food, and so I figured a greenhouse would make the most sense in a snowy area. I even did the interior for this one, with some little planter boxes and hanging plants, and even like a leafy green roof, which looks super cool. Then I moved finally on to the biggest project, the terraforming. This one was actually really interesting because I've never actually terraformed in a snowy biome before. Most of the terraforming I've done has been in plains, so it's very different. But in a snowy biome, I got to make these little snow patches as little details, and they came out super cool. I even used a little bit of shading at the bottom to make them stand out a little more, and I think they came out really nice. So to first start off, I'm building up the bottom layer of the closest mountain, or terrace type thing, and then moving on to the next one. I want to give this a lot of height elevation, give your eyes something to look at and focus on. And then I even built this little cave over here, and then I made sure to, in the middle of it, shade it a bunch so that you can really tell that it's a cave, and with all just the flat stone around it. I even added more of those snow patches, which are looking really good. And then I started texturing underneath this bridge, making a little ravine or crevasse type thing. Then we moved on to adding a waterfall flowing down. This took a couple of tries, and in the end it came out okay. I even built some trees around to help add some detail. The waterfall came out okay. We first laid out a general shape and then broke up most of it to add a bit of texture. And then we tried out the shape a bunch by jumping off the top of it to make sure it sort of flowed down, which is a really cool trick. And then over here, I built another little ravine, and I think I add a river in there later on. Then I start working on the pathway to get up. So to start off, we have this little stone winding staircase type thing that you move up through with a path leading up to it. And then again, I add these snow layers everywhere, and it just makes it look so much better. We continue the path up more and more snow layers as we go. And then we come up here where I build a small little bridge that looks really cool. I even start detailing a little bit more along the bridge and adding these fences with lanterns on them that make it look really cool and just give that little bit of extra detail. Yeah, see, we then add this frozen river over here, and you can see it kind of dripping over the edge. More snow droppings, whatever you want to call it. And then I start terraforming up the mountain more. Fell asleep here again, just went AFK. Then we move on to building up the walls of where our main structure is going to sit. So I want to have a village, and then your main focal point will be a castle with mountains surrounding the entire thing, and it came out looking really cool. We built up this small little platform with a walkway leading down onto the bridge that leads to the tavern. And then I added snow everywhere because it is a snowy biome, and then we moved back to terraforming. If you haven't noticed already, I have ADHD and can't focus on one thing for too long, so constantly I hop around. And again, forgot to hit record, so I missed the first part of this mountain, but we're hopping right into the next bit of it. I'm not super happy with how this turned out, but I think I come back to it later and fix it up. I want to get like a very steep type of mountain, so you'll notice that towards the bottom there's a lot of blocks, like there's a lot of layers, and then it gets really steep, and then it sort of curves at the top. Looks like a bit of a gravestone. It looks okay with just stone, but once I add the snow on top, that really brings it together. And I even built a little ledge outcropping with its own little tree. Again, sprinkling snow everywhere where it's a flat enough surface that snow would gather. So not like the big flat surfaces, but if there's like a small lump, I'll add like a snow lump to it, and that made it look really cool. I even threw in a small little waterfall with these. I really love how these turned out, but you can see these little ice patches at the bottom of the waterfall, and they look really cool. I then went and textured the entire thing, and immediately moved on to a different project. So now we're building up the other mountain. So this is much bigger. You can see it's bigger than the other one. This one's behind our original tavern and needs to be much bigger to help keep the tavern. While it's a giant build, it needs to make it not feel too big, so we needed to build up the mountain super big to give it that sense of scale. And now I'm connecting the tavern down to the ground with some stone and building up this little stone area where I want to have a lake. This terraforming over here turned out a lot better, where you get a much better slope. I'm really happy with how this turned out. So happy, in fact, that I think I add it down here as well, but I move on over to here and try to bring it into this area as well, and to get more of that slope. So I plan out the slope and then bring it up to the mountain, reworking it a little bit so that it looks better. I have to redo the snow lump where the tree sits, but in the end I think it came out a lot better. And then I texture it again. One thing I'm trying to do when texturing is to put andesite on all the blocks that I think the sun would shine on, and then towards the bottom where it's more rocky, I'll put cobblestone. So I try to make, when I texture, I try to make it have reasoning behind why it looks that way. Now we're adding the back of the mountain and adding the snow on top. You can see, I think I've said this already, but anywhere it's sort of flat, I'll try to add these snow lumps like snow's gathering. But other places where if it's too steep, it'll just be nothing. So then I move back to the waterfall, texture it a little bit, and now we're back over here in this snow area, and I'm adding snow along the edge. It's a mixture of snow moving into calcite and then diorite, and then beneath it I'll shade it using some acacia and tuff to make it stand out and pop a little bit more, and it looks really cool and gives it this cool effect. And then we move on to texturing it with the andesite, again following that light pattern rule, and it makes it look super cool in the end. I'm really happy with how this turned out. And we move on to the biggest mountain, adding the snow lump on top, and then also adding a side to it, because currently it wasn't even a full front. But this mountain over here, I'm really happy with how it came out. It looks super cool. It's got a really cool snow in front, and then we move on to adding the platform where our castle is going to sit. So that's the main structure, our focal point of the build. At this point, though, it is late in the night, so my building is not as good as it was. The terraforming and the houses are probably the best thing you're going to see. The castle came out really cool, but it's just not as good as the rest. You can see me laying out the general shape with stone brick, just building up where all the towers are going to go, and making sure the height makes sense. And then I'm adding detail as I go. One cool thing I did was these turret designs. I used dark oak instead of just like stone to make it look like that was a more built up or lived in part of the build. And it also helps it stand out a little bit more. It just looks really cool. One thing that I really struggle with is these pointed roofs. So you can see me trying to build one here, and it just doesn't work out, it doesn't look good. So I just tear it down, and I just make a dome shape instead. But I want to get some pointed roofs in here. So I spend a lot longer on this one, trying to get the shape right. And it looks a lot better. It's just not a great pointed roof. But in the end, I make it a little bit taller, and that seems to help it make sense a little bit more. And then we move on to adding detail to the sides and adding some more roofs over to the other buildings we've made. Not buildings, towers, sorry. And then I start working on the main keep portion of the build. So first we have these little like battlement sections, and then this is like where the wealthy people will live on the top. So again, in the more built up areas, I'll use the wood to show like more lived in and more recently built and more cared for, while the more nighty, I don't know how you'd describe it, the more rugged part of the build, I guess you'd call it, is just stone, because that needs to hold up against weather a lot more and is less cared for. This tower over here looks kind of like an apartment building, and I just end up making it worse with the walls and the trapdoors, and I have to bring a friend on to help me fix it because it just doesn't look good. I end up taking down the banners and replacing them with these cool turrets, which look really cool. And yeah, there's the friend I brought on. He worked on fixing up the apartment style keep, and it looked really cool. And then I start building up the top of this castle a little bit more as well, adding in, again, more wood to show that it's lived in, and then we even build these little fire braziers in the front that look super cool, and I copy it over to both sides to sort of make it easy, and then I texture up the roof of the pointy tower because it's looking a little weird, and I think texturing helps it. And then again, I just go AFK, fell asleep at my keyboard, and you get to watch it. I didn't stop recording, I didn't hit pause, so this entire time I'm just asleep. You can see the time go past because I didn't turn the daylight cycle off, so you can see it just going through. I moved, I don't know what happened, but I think right about now I start to come back and do some more building. Yeah, so I'm starting building again, working on these side bits. I add a little path around with more snow. Again, adding those snow lumps even on the towers, because I think they just make everything better and take away from a lot of the detailing I need to do by just adding something that draws your eyes to. I also start texturing the whole build, because at this point it was just flat stone brick, and then I also do this tower in the side that I forgot quickly, so I just do that, add a snow lump on it, and this is the finished build product. Thank you all so much for watching, for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you liked the video, please subscribe and leave a comment, and I will make more videos like this. If you didn't like the video, please subscribe and leave a comment, and I won't make more videos like this. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This project took me over 50 hours to complete. That's not even including the editing and other work that went into this. But I don't know if you could tell from my voice when editing this, but I got sick from this project because I ended up staying up so late. And it took forever, which is why I haven't uploaded in over 2 weeks. So if you're wondering where I've been, this is what I've been doing. So I'm gonna go drink some tea and hopefully start to feel better. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, don't look at the back. It's terrible.